Welcome to Episode 2 of Practical Spirituality. Today we're going to be talking about balance, what that means, how that relates to the therapeutic space as well as the martial arts space. Really excited to be able to dive in a little bit more as to what balance means to all of us. I'm here, Michael Anthony, LCSW. I'm here with my brother from another mother, Mr. Shahar Kovets. How you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing great. Last episode, you were small head and I was big head, and today we're two normal heads.
Two normal
That's
heads.
the, which put us into balance, right? We were out of balance last time. Now we're in balance. So that's really our main topic today. So what do we mean about balance? I think when we're talking about balance, what we really care about is wellness, and why balance is critical for wellness. So let me throw it to you, Michael. So what is wellness? How do you see wellness from your therapeutic space perspective? Then I'll talk a little bit how I see it.
Sure. I see wellness as a holistic approach that really blends together thoughts, feelings, behaviors, as we call it in cognitive behavioral therapy, but as it blends into mind, body, breath, right? So I like to tell my clients that therapy is really only 10% of the process, and 90% of therapy is actually done at home and with your practice. So wellness is really being able to tune into how is your mind working, how is your body feeling, and what are we doing to cultivate the feelings of feeling centered, feeling balanced, and feeling ready for the day. Ultimately, I see it as a holistic approach, whole body, whole mind, whole breath, whole behaviors. Frame it however you want to frame it, either in the martial arts world or the therapeutic space. But overall, I think it's just a daily practice as you better yourself in the whole.
Yeah, because I think that kind of begs an interesting question. Because we're talking about balance, but first I want to pose a question of and I like what you said. You kind of like you're proposing wellness as kind of a practice and personal development.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with that because I feel that we are naturally designed to develop and grow biologically, right? Biologically, every part of you is designed to learn, to remember. We have neurological memories throughout our entire body. We have a cognitive mind that is designed to hold space these memories. We can feel pain, so we remember pain. So there's everything about us is designed to remember and to try to develop and grow out of it. So I think is a good way to look at wellness as something that keeps developing over time, right? Because if you, how do you know a good garden is a good garden? Like, how do you, when you step into a garden, say like, oh, this garden is taken care of. It's doing well.
Mm-hmm.
Is because it's thriving. The vegetables are thriving. They're balancing each other. They're working with each other. The system seems to be on the upwards trajectory. So to me, that's kind of a good way to look at wellness as a whole. Would you agree with that one? Do you
Yeah,
think that makes sense?
I'd agree with that completely, and I love your metaphor of looking at a garden because you can tell when everything is in harmony, right? Everything's getting a decent amount of sunlight, a decent amount of hydration, decent amount of soil, decent amount of air exposure. When everything all comes together as one, you can really tell in the quality of the flora, and it's something that you can actually see. It's something that you can actually feel. You can just feel the energy of everything just working as one.
Right. So that's wellness. So that's wellness, and you said it right there. Everything comes together to support each other as one. So that's really talking about balance. So that's something that came up to me a lot lately. And as I was teaching, going through it, and kind of, we have our own interactions and we talk about these things. When we're interacting with more than energy, more than one energy, because that's the whole world. The whole world is elements. In the world of Kung Fu and Tai Chi, we talk about different elements like the fire, the water, like the metal, the wood, the earth. That's the Feng Shui elements. There's the elements of fire, water, earth, and air. There's the yoga elements. And the concept of wellness from that perspective was always balance. From the Eastern perspective, from the yoga perspective, the Tai Chi perspective, Qigong, yin and yang, it's always about multiple forces opposing, fueling, and supporting each other. Like they counter each other as well as support each other. And I think that's kind of what brings back, I think the easiest way to describe it would be like a good partnership. When you have a good partnership, like me and Michael, we're great partners, right? We balance each other really well, right? Michael has a lot of strong water energy, so he's very receptive. He knows how to hold space. and I got my fire energy. I have to like kind of the energy. I'm bringing some light, some inspiration. But these things can be out of balance as well. So when I get a little too much in my head, I get sometimes a little too aggressive, a little too fiery. Michael knows how to cool me down. And when Michael, you become a little too stagnant, a little too
Hmm.
agreeable, I'm like,
Hmm.
Michael,
I agree with
wake
that.
up. Like I heat up the fire, I make you into tea.
That's right.
A well balanced tea. We together we're a lovely tea. That's how
Hmm.
I see it.
Hmm. And I love how you mention, the aspect of balance and harmony, especially when it comes to relationships, right? I teach a lot of couples that when you're trying to really improve your communication style, even something as simple as conversation can be seen as that interchangeable exchange of yin and yang energy. As I'm talking, I'm
Right.
very yang energy, and Shahar is experiencing very yin energy as he's being receptive. And through proper communication, those roles switch. Right. So when I have a lot of couples that start to argue and try to talk over one another, that's not balance. That's not harmony. Right. That's just adding fuel to the fire, if you will. So if we can really learn how to tap into what that balance looks like, what that harmony looks like in all of our interactions and even within ourselves, I mean, you can see a lot of really great improvements with that.
All right, so that's the macro version, the macro vision of the whole thing. So let's get it how the young people call it, down and dirty. I think that's what they say.
Sure.
So let's really get into the nitty gritty of the whole thing. So what does it mean? Like it's a very flowery. We use a lot of flowery words here to describe. Oh, balance is the fire, it's the water, it's the air. What does that even mean? How can you tell? Like, do what? When I feel a little too stagnant in my life, do I just like set myself on fire? Did I put like fire under my arm? Is that more fire in my life? Like, not
Literally like the
necessarily.
fire under your rear.
In your butt, yeah, you put the fire on your butt. But I don't think that will help you. But so, what are we talking about in regular life, in daily life? Because we're talking about practical spirituality. That's our channel. So, how how do I live my life in a balanced way? And this is something that came up to me in my yoga classes because I see people come to my class, and this is the once a week time they come and practice. So they're trying to catch up on all their exercise. So when I say do a posture and I say relax in the posture, they're doing push-ups, they're doing jumping jacks, they're doing backflips, they're doing break dancing. And in my head is like, as a teacher, at first I thought I was like, no, you need to relax. But I understand what they're doing. They're trying to catch up on the practice. Now, I'm assuming that's something you experience too, Michael. With like, I'm assuming you have clients who see you once a week.
Hmm.
It's lovely to see you every day, but sometimes people don't have the time or the ability to do that. So
Hmm.
they come to you once a week. Don't they just unload
Hmm.
sometimes?
Yeah, and I see that a lot, with even going back to couples counseling, right? One of the things as a clinician that I really need to keep my eye out for is, are they practicing skills within the home, or are they just holding things in, coming to session, and then just dumping it all out at once, right? So
Right.
what's the difference there, or what's the barrier there that is preventing them from, practicing balance within the home, right? Or practicing the harmony within the home. Because I've had multiple couples come in, and one of them will say, when I ask, oh, so how are things going? Like what's been working, what hasn't been working, and one partner says, oh, everything's been fantastic, I love it, right? And then the other partner's like, well, let me tell you about this one thing, and then just unload all this stuff that the other partner wasn't even aware about. And the amount of times I've seen just kind of the wide-eyed, slack-jawed, like, wait, what? You were feeling that the whole time, right? It's like, it's that lack of being able to practice the wellness and the balance, outside of the session, right? Some people like to do that. They like to just hold and hold and hold and hold, come to therapy, unload, right? And obviously I enjoy creating that safe and, space to be able to listen. That's why I love what I do, right? But what do you do with that energy, right? What do you take from session, and how do you actually integrate and use it on your own? Because I like to say, and I'm in the business of giving you a remedy, not a band-aid. My joke that I tell everybody in the first session is, I'm in one of the rare jobs where my aim is for you to get rid of me, right? So what does that even look like? What do we need to do to get there where, you can be like, Mike, get out of my life, right? So
Right.
it's
Mhm.
yeah, it's a constant
That's the
practice.
best feeling. As a therapist, that's the best feeling. There's a misconception about therapy and and doctors like that they just want you to be sick over time so they can to keep the business. But that's not true.
Right.
That's not true. If you're a lot of therapists, especially if you're a good therapist doesn't want to see you. It's a bad feeling to treat someone and to keep coming back like they're not life is not getting better. It's a bad sensation to go through. So that's a little bit of a kind of a sidestep. But let's bring back to what you said. You talked about how you have one partner who is going through an entire experience, holding into it, not saying anything, and then they see you and they unload.
Yep.
So similar to what in my yoga class. So this is a great example of what imbalance feels like, right? Because if we're going to talk about balance, let's talk about imbalance as well. So imbalance is shifting from one energy to the next in a very wide swing, like a pendulum. And it's easy to think about just practically. If you're standing on one leg and you're not balanced, what's going to happen? You swing wildly from side to side, you fall, like you keep coming back and forth, like you swing wild. So that's a good example of what imbalance is. And it's true energetically, it's true emotionally, it's true physically. That if you get to that state where you don't move, don't exercise for 7 days, 14 days straight, just sit down, look at your computer, and then one day you go all out, expect to get injured. Expect that the body is not going to like it, or you you diet for like a whole week and then you like binge at the on Saturday you just like eat as much as you can. Your stomach is going to go through these swinging, wildly swinging energy. Like I said, it's true physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual as well. So that's a great example through imbalance. And why is it not desirable? Because it's draining. To swing wildly from one stage to the next is a very disorienting, and it takes away energy from you. Right? It can be either overly exciting or overly exhausting. Either way, the energy is drained out of you. It's like what is a good example I can think of? It's I think I already gave a few examples, but this is kind of what we're talking about. That's the state of imbalance. Being very angry, being very happy, being very sad, being excited, and going back and forth like that can be very, 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 very energetically draining, physically draining, emotionally draining, spiritually draining. Does that make sense to you, Michael?
Oh yeah, definitely 100%. We can't fire on all cylinders all the time, right? And when you're kind of swinging from one direction to the other, there's something that you're lacking. There's something that pulls your energy away, something that drains you, right? It reminds me a lot of let's say I have a client who used to go to the gym all the time, right? And used to be able to bench press more than their body weight and everything along those lines. And then something happens where they haven't been able to go to the gym in a long time, right? And now they want to come back and they're like, I'm ready to go. I'm going to get back into it. They go back to the gym. They expect to be able to pick up where they left off. And then they come in saying, I give up. It's so frustrating. I can't do what I used to do. Right. But it's really kind of talking about, well, let's honor where we are. Right. You can get to where you were, but we need to take small movements in that direction. Be mindful about your movements in that direction rather than starting at the end and working backwards. That can really foster a lot of frustrations and ankers and exhaustion and burnout. Is a big one that I see a lot.
Yeah, I think you touched on it right there. I liked what you said. Yeah, we're having a good back and forth today. I like it. That you said it right there. So how can you tell that you're in balance, right? When you know when you're in balance. That's the feeling. You'll get exhausted. You'll swing wildly from one energetic space to the next. Now, how can I tell? How can I be aware enough? And that's really the key word, awareness, to when can I bring myself back to balance. So if I'm already swinging very wildly to one spot, how do I bring myself back before I get to the extreme? Because from one extreme, it's very easy to get to the other one. Like you said, like you train a lot in extreme, and then you get injured or something, and then you get back to it immediately after months of hiatus, and now you're you're going to injure yourself more likely, you're going to hurt yourself. And or if you look at it from a spiritual place, like you do a lot of meditation, you do your ashrams, you do your immersion courses, you're meditating every day and you feel very well in balance, and then immediately you go to your home and you watch Netflix and you smoke, you go back to your old patterns and you swing wildly to that one side, and then you try to go back to the ashram and it doesn't feel the same. Right? It's very, very similar concept of swinging from one energy to the next. So back to what I was said, awareness of shifting energy. How can I tell when my energy goes one way, and how can I tell when my energy going the other way? And I'll throw that to you, Michael. What do you think before I say my thoughts? What do you think, or how do you like? Let's say I'm a client and I'm a patient and I come to you, Michael, and I say, I heard what you say about feeling imbalanced, but how can I tell before I get too angry or before I get too sad? Like how do I catch it? Forget how I fix it. How do I catch it? You just be aware of it.
Yeah, I always ask, what's the first thing you notice, right? So if we know what a level 10 is, right, what do you notice at a level 5, right? Or what do you notice at a level 3? Or what do you notice at a level 7, right? And really trying to take it almost step backwards from there, right? So I sometimes caution clients when we're working on goals specifically to be cautious of working at the end and going backwards because it can foster a lot of frustration. But when it comes to checking in with yourself and understanding what balance and imbalance looks like, right? Sometimes it's not bad to start at the end and work backwards, right? Because we know what it looks like when it's too far gone. So what do we start to notice on the journey there? And when you can really bring it back down to, let's say I am coming to you with anger issues because I just can't stop throwing plates and saying really mean things and I feel really bad afterwards, right? Well, what's the first thing that you notice, right? A perfect example, I had a client who came in specifically for anger management, and we were able to trace it back down to the fact that if he starts to notice his hands doing this for one reason or another, that's the very first sign that energy is starting to come up and he's about to get angry and things along those lines. So now he's developed tools that if he starts to notice this, right, he knows to take a break, take a breath, remove himself from the situation, whatever he may need to do, right? So it's all about being able to kind of track where you are in your process and how early you can recognize some of the signs and symptoms that you're on that trajectory.
Right. So I think we're balancing really well here. So so you said it right there. Like for example, that feeling in the hand. That's why in the world of martial arts, qigong and tai chi and yoga too, the way you can tell an imbalance early on is through your body. Your body is this magnificent tool. It really is a magnificent tool, beyond measurement. The more you learn about it, the more exciting it becomes. It really is an amazing, unbelievable tool. Not just your brain, your body, this whole ecosystem called a human being is truly remarkable. And you can tell, and that body, that ecosystem can tell, how in Star Wars they say, I feel a shift in the force.
Disturbance in the force, yes.
Disturbance in the force. Thank you. You can clearly, I didn't grow up on Star Wars, but so you can feel a disturbance in the force through different subtle sensations. Sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's much more blunt. But for example, if I am feeling energy of laziness, all right, sometimes I can feel it through my posture, just the way my posture, I carry myself. Something simple like that can tell me what my body is going through energetically. So if you treat your body as like one giant receptor, and it's not just a receptor, it's not just a transmitter. It receives and it transmits at the same time. So if you look at it from the perspective of something that receives information, processes it, and tells you where you are exactly in that scale of balance. So just like you said, if you have a patient that is experiencing anger and his body can recognize it faster than his brain does, because his body is already there. That's the thing with emotions. And I don't remember if we talked about it in our last session or there was something we talked in some workshop, but emotions live in your body.
Mm-hmm.
They're not in your head.
Mm-hmm.
In your head, maybe you can perceive emotions, but you embody emotions in your body. So if I'm angry, it's going to show up in my body first.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm feeling a disturbance in my energy, if I'm doing yoga practice or yoga asana, as I shift from one energetic space to the other, or I do qigong and tai chi where I move from one posture to the next, or martial arts when I fight someone, I need to be kind of a soft hyper awareness of where's the energy flow with me. And obviously, the game doesn't stop there, right? The next stage of spirituality will be to understanding the other person in front of you and create a harmony with them. But first, before creating balance and harmony outwards, you have to create balance and harmony inwards.
Mm-hmm.
And bring it back to what we're talking about. Awareness is that first key. Awareness of what? Shifts of energy. Where can I feel shifts of energy? In my body. Your brain is not going to catch it. Your brain
Right.
is fast, but your body is more sensitive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
You're not.
I like the way that you
Please,
put
please.
that. Your body is more sensitive, right? Your brain can be fast, but the body is more sensitive, right? Because again,
Right.
there's a really interesting book I had read, that had that really observed the concept of the phrase being possessed by anger, right? So a lot of people sometimes when they reach that level 10, it's almost like I'm seeing red, right? Your body is just flooded with so much energy and so much emotion that you almost lose your consciousness, right? Flipping your lid, right? You just lose that top side of your brain, right? And that consciousness piece because you're just acting off of that raw emotion. And some people, or a lot of people really aren't able to catch that mentally, right? Because it does happen physically. Sometimes I like to bring into sessions what I call my brain puppet, right? So if you took the half of the brain here, right, and you got your amygdala here and your cerebrum here, right? It's like the energy travels up the spine, right, and it gets
First
caught.
of all, Michael, you just made the symbol for being abused.
Did I
You
really?
know, that's the
Oh,
one. You thumb in, one, two, three. That's the sign for domestic abuse. So
oh,
just to let everybody listening, there's no domestic abuse between me and Michael here. Michael is saying, just everybody knows.
yes,
But that is
maybe
the
I'll have to
sign.
change.
Just FYI, if nobody knows it, it's a good, important one. You go
That is
like this,
important. Hmm.
up, 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 up. That's an important one.
That is important. Okay, getting
It's
back
like
to
the
what I was
SOS.
saying.
Okay, back to what I said. Sorry, that was distracted. I know.
No, that is a good PSA. I think that that's definitely good for people to be aware of. But when you're in the therapeutic space, right, in a nice, safe, comfortable office that I'm curating, right, this is half of your brain, right? So again, information is traveling up your spine. It gets caught in your amygdala. We flip our lid. So we're working off of that raw emotion. So your body is more receptive to that energy. Emotions are energy, right? So your body is more susceptible to that energy before your brain can even catch up. It's not until after we've calmed down, after that seeing red goes away, after that lid kind of comes back down, that then we can make sense of what happened. Same thing happens with PTSD, right? Soldier that comes back from the war, hears the car backfire, body reacts before the mind does, right? And it's not until after the fact that then they can realize, oh, I'm safe. It's just a car, right? Things along those lines. But yeah, again, just to reinforce what Shahar is saying, body is much more receptive or sensitive, if you will.
Right. So on that point, I will kind of reinforce that point with think about the body and the brain to be like a throne and a king. So the throne is going to be the body. That's where the king sits, which will be the brain in this case. So if the throne is a very comfortable throne, people put energy in it. It's a nice cushion. It holds the space for the king, the brain. Then the brain will you'll have a calm king, and when you have a calm king, you have a calm kingdom. You have a well managed kingdom. But if your body, if the throne is like made of swords, like in Game of Thrones, like it's metal, the king is going to be constantly agitated. The king is going to be constantly in a space of paranoia or anger or stress or anxiety. And the kingdom will be run the same way, right? So the state of your body is what holds the mind, the king. So if I want to create internal balance, okay, so I'm aware, I'm noticing what's going on in my body. And now I'm kind of countering and balancing this. So I have too much fire, so I add a little more water. I have too much water, I add a little fire. If I have too much air, I do this. And it's not a game of rock paper scissors. There's actually a whole cycle through it. It's top of my head. It's like the wood fuels the fire. The fire fuels the earth, if I remember right. The earth fuels the water fuels the wood, and the wood fuels the fire. This is the cycle of support. Now, if I'm wrong, please write in the comments, but be gentle. I just this is straight out of my head. But and then there's also the balance that counter, the feng shui that counter each other. Right? The fire counters the metal, right? The fire burns the metal cuts the tree coils through the ground what does the ground does? The wood coils through the ground probably balances the water balances the fire, and so on. Fire balances. So there's a cycles of countering and the cycle of fueling. And so this is a good example of how in Qigong they looked at wellness and balancing. So when you're in a state of balance in your body, your mind will be in a state of balance. Because you cannot fix a problem using the same brain who caused it. You have to change your brain. How do you change the brain? Like Michael said, if you're in a state of panic, like PTSD, or even just a state of normal irritation,
Activated nervous system. We'll call it that.
activated nervous system or imbalanced nervous system, because the nervous
Imbalanced
system is
nervous
active all the
system.
time.
Yes.
So, because it's always active. But if it goes through that high pressure swinging fight or flight mode, the brain will not change until the body changes. And the PTSD especially, I know that's really well. The brain, you cannot say to yourself, I'm in a calm place. You have to calm the body. The saying yourself is part of the breathing as well. It's all together. It's not one or the other. But if someone is going through PTSD and you just say, dude, you're good, you're good, you're good, that doesn't change the state of the body. The body needs to go into that one, and then the mind will shift. So, I think this is kind of like closing us off from the practice of balance and wellness, etc. So, Michael, how about you close us with some practical tips? Since it's practical spirituality, we have just a couple of minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So, throw a few tips, and I'll throw a few tips, and we'll close there.
Sounds great.
How
Again,
do
I
you
think
how do you find balance? How do you create balance? That's the tip of the day.
I think you find balance in, well, so again, talking about awareness as being key. So really starting to recognize what are those signs and symptoms that you're starting to become out of balance. So what are the things that help you feel calm? What are the things that help you feel relaxed? Is it movement? Is it community? Is it going for a walk? Is it spending time with your pet? Right? What are the things that are going to help you feel more balanced? And I always like to ask people, especially when they say that they feel stuck, right? What is the most minimal attainable thing that you can do to feel like you have a millimeter forward, right? So what is attainable, right? What is in front of you? What is something that you can do? The person that wants to go out and jump right back into where they were at the gym can start by taking a simple walk outside, or even just stepping outside. Just everything is a success if you're really trying to bring yourself back into a state of balance. We don't need to go leaps and bounds right out of the gate, right? But just anything that makes you feel like, hey, I've taken a baby step towards what it means to feel balanced.
All right, and that's beautifully put. And I'll close with really the simplest tip I can give for that is get out from the mind and into the body, because that's where all the awareness will come. You feel angry, you feel happy, you feel love, even with positive emotions and experiences. Go into your body, notice to tell, like notice when it feels a certain way. And that's what's going to give you the ability to tap back into it. If you know that a proper posture gives you that feeling of confidence and that will affect your mind, now you know how to bring yourself back to confidence through your posture, through your breath, right? Or when you feel stress and you feel it in the twitching or the clenching of your jaw, you know that if you want to get out of that anxiety, relax the jaw, right? If you catch that early before it swings, that's a great way to kind of practice balance. So that's how you can tell from the brain into the body. All right, thank you, Michael. That's fantastic. How about you close us off? Just
Thank
say,
you, Shahar, as well. Always great to be able to bring this information forward. We're really enjoying this journey, really looking forward to seeing everybody next time and covering an additional topic. So thank you all for tuning into Practical Spirituality, and we will keep you updated on future episodes. We'd love to hear your comments. We'd love to hear your ideas. You would love to hear your questions. We would love to hear things that you can relate to. So please, please, please don't hesitate to leave us a comment. And we will definitely take those in review. So,
Beautiful. Bye bye, everyone.
bye bye, everybody.